Salut tout le monde, bienvenue les Alpes françaises. Hey everybody, I'm currently on tour in the beautiful French Alps, but I thought I'd share this lesson with you. We're going to take a look at Branford Marsalis' Soprano Sax solo on the classic sting track Englishman in New York. Just to warn you, I may well be splicing in some snowboarding clips to this video. Woo! Oh yeah. Alright, let's jouer la basse. That's play the bass in French. As usual, we'll do it at full speed, then I'll play it a little bit slower, and then we'll break it down. Alright, so it's really useful to learn things that have been played by instruments other than your own, because they're going to come up with different ideas, different approaches that you might not necessarily find obvious on your instrument. So playing a sax solo on the bass, there's going to be certain things with phrasing and note choices that we wouldn't necessarily play normally. So with this being a sax, obviously you need to take a breath when you're playing it, so there's going to be spaces in this solo out of necessity. Also, the way that the notes are laid out on a saxophone are different than the way they're laid out on a guitar or bass fretboard. So we're soloing over three chords. We've got E minor, A7 and B minor. That's going to give us a parent key of kind of E Dorian, or you can think of it as D major, or B Aeolian, or A Mixolydian. Throughout this, I'm mostly going to be talking about E Dorian and kind of E blues scale, and then obviously the individual chords as they arise. So this solo leads out from the bridge section, which was just before it. So we're actually going to start with an F sharp dominant 7 chord to B minor 7, and then our solo is going to start properly with the E minor chord. We're going to start off with this run to get from the F sharp to the B minor, starting on the major third of F sharp 7, leading into the minor third from B minor. We're just following through. We've got the major third, the fourth and the fifth of the F sharp, leading up to our D note, the minor third in B minor. So then we're outlining a B minor 11 chord, or you can be just thinking about it as notes from the scale. We're starting on the root note, the B, up to the minor third, down to the ninth or the second, then the minor 7, the A, then the 11, E, and then we get this B minor pentatonic idea, starting from the B, down the pentatonic scale, and then finishing off with fourths, landing on an F sharp at the end, which is the fifth of that B minor chord. So straight away we're using note choices that aren't from kind of simple patterns that we're used to. Using a lot of these fourth intervals, which is kind of awkward on a bass or a guitar because it's the same fret on the string below. Then in the pentatonic idea, that that same idea again using fourths, which gives us that awkward kind of movement on this instrument. This is where our chord sequence is going to start, with E minor to A7 to B minor 7. And this time we're going to be using patterns that are familiar to us. We're going to be using the E blues scale. It starts on the A. Over the E chord, this again is implying the 11. Throughout this solo, there's lots of use of that fourth interval and those 11 kind of sounds. We're going to start on the A note and then just travel up the blues scale and back down. By now, the chord is an A7 chord, so we're going to end the bar with a slide to a C sharp, which is the major third in that A7 chord. We're then repeating this kind of idea. Now it's over a B minor 7 chord. And we're going to end with the minor 7. We're going to slide up to an A note, so the minor 7 against a B minor 7 chord. It's worth pointing out in this bit, when we're doing our blues scale thing, we're kind of hinting at this low F sharp in between our A notes, which is the 5th of that B minor chord. Try not to make it too prominent though. Just kind of subtle there. So throughout this solo, we're kind of playing around with the time and the rhythms. It's kind of swung throughout, but this section is going to be a lot straighter. Again, we're kind of using this these 3 notes from the E blues scale. We're going to finish it off this time with notes from the B minor pentatonic. That F sharp being used again and resolving to an E note at the end. Again, this is going to be the 11th over the B minor chord. Let's check out that whole blues scale kind of minor pentatonic section. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. We then get this really nice lick through the E Dorian scale with a little bit of chromatic stuff thrown in as well. I'm going to start on a G, going up to the A, down to the F sharp, just running through the E Dorian scale, up to an F sharp again at the top, back to a kind of swung feel, and then this quick little flick from the F sharp. We've got the G, back to F sharp and back to E, and then coming down chromatically from D to B. So kind of sounds familiar from that jazz vocabulary, with this quick little flick at the top and this chromatic rundown. And then we get this really cool kind of implied chord substitution. We're going to use a diminished arpeggio, starting from an A sharp or a B flat. This is over the A7 chord. In jazz, it's quite common to do that particular substitution, going from a dominant 7 chord using the diminished arpeggio from a semitone above. So instead of A, starting on A sharp, which gives you some nice extensions onto your chord. We've got the first note, the A sharp or the B flat, would be the flat 9 of an A chord. The next note is just going to be the major third, so that's cool, that's already there. Our next note is the 5th, again, already part of the parent chord. And then the minor 7. So everything's from that chord already, apart from that very first note, which is the flat 9. But we get this really familiar diminished sound, and it works really nicely over that particular chord. Now the reason that works particularly well is because of the context that it's put in. Using diminished substitutions and things like that seems pretty out there, but it's just a very small part of the solo. Remember, it's over a pop song, it's a jazzy section, but it's a pop song, so we can't be kind of too out there with our note choices. So when we do something a little weird like this, we need to come straight back in and play something a little bit more familiar to ground everything again. So we're going to go back to the scale, and we get this little scale sequence. Going up a second, coming down a third, going up a second, coming down a third. So we're going to be on the D, up to E. Then we jump down to the next note of the scale. So C sharp to D. Down the third again and finishing on the B. Let's hear that whole kind of lick put together. Another thing to note is to use dynamics within these lines, trying to make some of the notes jump out and some of the notes sit back a little bit. Just gives it a lot more character and makes it more interesting. This next lick again gives us that kind of hybrid of the B minor pentatonic and the E blues scale. So we're going to start on the F sharp note, the 5th of a B minor, and from the B minor pentatonic. Then we've got these 3 blues notes from the E blues scale. Then we're going to switch back to our parent key, the E Dorian or the B Aeolian. So this scale run starts on the F sharp. We've got the chromatic section from the E blues scale, so A sharp, B. Then back to your parent key, so C sharp, D, E, F sharp. And then we've got these wider intervals. We're going to go up to the B, down to F sharp, and finishing on an E. And then still using our parent scale, coming to the last part of the solo, again using third intervals. We've got the D to F sharp and back to the D again, just down the scale. And then we get this nice melodic figure. We're going to go from F sharp to G, then right up to a high F sharp and down to an E. So again using wider intervals, so a major 7 there. The whole thing then finishes off with this B minor pentatonic idea over the B minor chord. We're going to start with an F sharp, so the 5th in the chord of B. We've then got this 4th interval again, going up to the root note of the B, back to the F sharp, down to an E, just using the minor pentatonic scale. And then these quick pentatonic runs to finish. These fast runs at the end are played legato, so I've decided to go for like a tap-in, pull-off kind of approach. We're going to start off tapping on the A note, so that's fret number 19 on the D string, pulling off to the F sharp, which is fret 16, pulling off again to the E, which is fret 14, pulling off again to the D, which is fret 12. So that is still all minor pentatonic notes, but just stretched across one string. We're going to keep our fretting hand in the same place, but bring our tapping hand across to tap the 16th fret this time, pulling off again through the 14th and the 12th, crossing over to hammer on with our fretting hand on 14 of the A string. And then our last two tapping licks, we're going to bring our fretting hand down to the 9th position, so finger 1 on the 9th fret. We're going to be tapping fret 14, pulling off to 12, pulling off to 9. And again, a fretting hand hammer on fret 12 of the A string. And then we get the same idea on the next pair of strings, so the A string to the E string. We're going to tap on 14, pull off to 12, pull off to 9, hammer on to 12 on the E string, finishing on that E note for the end of the solo. Alright, so that's your solo. Remember, it's well worth learning what other instruments play and trying to transfer that to your instrument because you're going to come up with loads of fresh new ideas. Alright, good luck. See you next time.
Let's go!